All right. Well, hi, hello, and welcome to the webinar. I'm Jess,
And I'm Mackenzie.
and we are about to get into a very exciting webinar with all of you in just a few seconds here. But Mackenzie and I wanted to go through a few of the housekeeping points that we think will help you get the most out of our time here together today. So, Mackenzie, where should we start?
First, I want to draw your attention over to the questions section of your webinar console. This is the best place to get involved, get interactive, post all of your insightful questions, comments, feedback, and ideas. In fact, why don't you find the tab right now and give it a little test run by saying hi, hello, hola, whatever salutation you want to put out to the community today. And as a quick side note, that window is also the best place to reach out and let us know if you have any technical issues during the webinar. Don't forget that a browser refresh should clear up most of the common issues. But if your slides or audio aren't working, feel free just to shoot us a message in the questions tab and our team will be happy to help.
All right, well, the questions tab was a great place to start because the next stop on our guided tour of your audience console is the handouts tab. Do spend some time in the handouts tab. There are so many wonderful resources and takeaways from our conversation here today. You are going to want those to follow up on this, I promise you. So go over to the handouts tab right now, start clicking on those links, download those PDFs, open those tabs, make sure you've got those set aside. Don't go anywhere just yet. Those are for later after we wrap the webinar, because right now you're going to want to stay with us. Not only do we have a very cool webinar coming your way, we also have a prize giveaway that we want you to have in mind, because that is coming at you at the end of our session. So we will have a $250 prize giveaway at the end of our webinar. Now, all winners do need to be here live and present at the webinar, and all winners must meet the prize terms and conditions. Those are linked for you in the handouts tab that we were just chatting about. So you can head on over to the handouts tab, click and scroll down, and you will find the full T's and C's waiting for you there.
Okay, Jess, I think that's everything for the housekeeping. Let's get this webinar rolling.
Let's do it.
Thanks for those housekeeping tips, Jess and Mackenzie. My name is Cindy Davis. I'm the Content Director of AV Technology, and I'm thrilled to be hosting this webinar, The Modern Workplace. As Jess mentioned, this is an interactive panel, and we hope that means you too. So throughout the webcast, please submit your questions via the questions section on your console, and we'll take as many as we can. And don't forget to download the helpful resource from the handout section. Next, I'd like to thank our sponsors, Sony and Televic. And now, I'd like to ask our panelists to introduce themselves and provide a bit more information about themselves and their company to provide a bit of context as it relates to today's discussion. Peter, if you would, that would be wonderful. Start us
Great.
off.
No, thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity. I'm Peter Papageorge, the Vice President of Sales and Business Development for the U.S. division of Televic. Televic is a manufacturer based in Belgium for 75 years. Most people in the United States have no idea who Televic is. And we're the manufacturers of a niche market product of discussion and conference systems. So at the largest scale, supporting entities like the NATO, the United Nations, governments, including the State Department, DoD, and different areas of large-scale support around the world. Our products are known for managed meetings. And ultimately, we do very good at that, including voting, interpretation, and things. However, during the pandemic, we shifted because of the need from the topic of today into informal meetings and taking a change to our products to support corporations, higher education, courts, and a number of things beyond our cities and municipalities. So we welcome the opportunity here to contribute today.
Great, thank you. And Joe.
Hi, everyone. I'm Joe Drury. I'm the business manager for Sony's Pro Bravia portfolio for North America. And I've really kind of been in this AV, IT, consumer role for about the last 6 years, where I've managed professional displays, TVs, as well as monitors. And so, as many of you may know, Sony is a company with a wide-ranging portfolio. However, on the professional side, we have products that range from professional displays like our Pro Bravias. We have business projectors. We have professional cameras. as well as CLED, which is our direct view LED products. And I'm very excited about this conversation. Thanks.
Great. Thanks, Joe. And Ashish.
Hi, I'm Ashish Maru, Director of Technology for Red Thread Spaces. Red Thread is a wholly owned subsidiary of Steelcase, which is the largest furniture manufacturer for office furniture in the world. And we consider ourselves space integrators. So basically what we do is we build out spaces, which includes, our product offerings includes architectural products like wall systems, floor systems, ceiling systems, etc. But also coming in from that, we have a whole group that does furniture. We have also have a group that does audiovisual technology, which is where I reside as the director of technology there. And so we anywhere from conference rooms to small huddle rooms, large auditoriums, we outfit those spaces with audiovisual technology, and the rest of our group, kind of also takes care of the rest of the offices with all kinds of furniture and like just building out purpose-built spaces.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. So on Monday, I'm sure many of you heard that the president signed an executive order terminating remote work in all departments and agencies in the executive branch of the government. Okay, corporate is not government, but will this have a ripple effect within the corporate landscape? Maybe, maybe not. And certainly not if employees have a say. According to a Flex Index data, of the 13,000 US companies they surveyed, 2/3 have already settled into a flexible work policy. So there's probably not going to be going back on that anytime too quick. So I'd like to also share a few points made by the author of a recent article published by MIT Sloan Management Review. Organizations that embrace flexible work will steal talent from organizations that impose harsh return to office mandates. And there's a shift away from an overly simplistic focus on where people work to focusing on how teams work. Hear, hear, I agree with that wholeheartedly. And in the long run, those leaders who move work forward by building organizations rooted in trust and focused on performance will outperform those wrestling with their own employees. Absolutely agreed. So let's get started. I want to start off with some trends. It's easy to talk high-level trends, but we've got Peter and Joe here that work at companies that are developing products based on trends they believe will shape the modern workplace and based on what has already been happening. And Ashish, as he mentioned, works directly with corporations on reshaping the workplace. So Ashish, I'd like to ask you to start by sharing some of the trends that you're seeing through your clients and what that modern workplace is looking like, both from the footprint and the space perspective and enabling technologies.
Yeah. So, as COVID hit, we saw a huge acceleration in the technical competencies of being able to accommodate people working from anywhere, right? People, kind of jobs that you thought you needed to be in person, mainly, let's say a school teacher, was able to be remote. And manufacturers like Sony, Televic, Microsoft, a lot of different manufacturers very quickly came out with solutions that enabled people to do that. Is it realistic at this point to expect people, for us to just turn around and come back? I don't think so. I think we spent majority of 2023, 2024 experimenting with all kinds of mandates and be a magnet and don't be a mandate, all kinds of buzzwords that we were throwing around. And I think at the company level, they really wanted to get the people to come back. But at the employee level, the companies were not able to make a convincing enough argument of why you're coming back. And there was certainly a lot of functions, like if you were a lab worker or if you were a person that needed to interact with certain specialized equipment, yes, you definitely had to come back. There was no, until now, still we don't have work from home truck drivers, right? That's just, maybe at some point we will have that, but right now we do not, right? But So depending on your function and your purpose, I would say on a daily basis or even on an hourly basis, employees are electing where they need to work from. So I may spend the first half of my day in the office because I need to have certain meetings or I need to interact with some equipment, but then, go back to my home and finish the rest of the day there. And now it's also timing. Like, when do I want to work? In addition to where do I want to work is the other aspect of it. So I think my expectation is that majority of the 2025 are going to spend kind of settling the dust on a lot of these things, and certainly the new administration and all the different changes that are going to come from that is definitely going to be a part of it. But yeah, I don't think it's realistic to expect 100% mandate, on any kind of a major level, at least in the private sector.
Cindy, I think we all agree with Ashish that the pendulum shifted all the way one side and now it went to the other, or it's going to the other. It's going to settle, but before the pandemic, let's say 5% was remote, and then we went to 90% remote, and wherever it hits, I think we all agree it's going to be 90. It's going to be a percentage that you need to be prepared. We're already there. So how do you maximize it? And it's not just the remote worker, it's the audio in the room that have been designed all over the years. They were tested very heavily because we had a lot of situations where a CEO would say, there's no way over my dead body you're going to put that on my table. I want everything out of sight. But when the chips fell down and said, now the CEO's at home and I can't hear the people in the office, different solutions were considered that said communication trumps cosmetics. We need to hear. So I think we all agree that hybrid's here to stay. What is the best way to get the audio where it needs to be in any installation, small or large, and make sure we can communicate and understand what we're hearing? So that's kind of a supplement to Ashish's point from my side.
Yeah.
Oh, I think we probably are all so in agreement here. There's the remote worker, but there's global workforces, right? And distributed workforces that really has nothing to do with hybrid, the whole hybrid movement. So Joe, display is becoming a necessity to bridge that in-person and remote workers. What trends do you see coming up?
Really to speak to what Ashish and Peter were talking about is how do we prepare really for the unknown? How do we make a product, and how does the end user feel comfortable with buying a product, not knowing exactly how it's going to be used? We plan our spaces and we have expectations, but never more though since the end of COVID do we now feel a need to have a dynamic product for our workspace to make sure that it works with whatever curveballs thrown our way, and really having a product. So speaking from a display perspective, that is going to thrive in the environment of everyone who's there, but then also provides the exact same environment for those who are remote, and everyone's able to interface in the same way, removing as many hurdles and restrictions as possible to make sure that everyone's on the same playing field, and we're able to, as efficiently as possible, use our space to get the work done.
Yep, absolutely. Peter, I just want to come back to you for 1 second. For 5 years, for actually forever, if we've done, whether it was WebEx years ago, or actually I know that's still around, but
go to meeting. Yeah, I remember.
Yeah, right. So how do you get companies to say yes, we need better quality audio, and why is that important? How do you get them to spend that money versus it's not it's really driving home the need.
Yeah, I think in general, the what's coming at us, in addition to what we've just been discussing, is the AI application and being able to have good AI capability for interpretation, closed captioning, recording, whatever it is. The audio quality is even needing more quality for those capabilities coming online. So what's interesting from our perspective of what we've seen over the last 3 years was not just the capture of the audio in the room and far needs to be able to be coordinated and integrated with, Ashish and teams like Ashish around the country. So it's not just one manufacturer, it's a team approach, but the desire to have it is very clear. The hybrid experiment moved us into let's get our tools better, not just, making sure everybody uses a headset at home or audio or whatever it is in the rooms themselves, the acoustics. We have a great example of courts, where every court is a different shape and size, from 30-foot ceilings and hard surfaces to, low ceilings in the basement. And you go, how do you standardize audio in all of those? It's very difficult. And I think that we're all moving forward with partnerships we'll talk about later, but the need for audio more than ever is needed because of where we're at currently.
Ashish, how is that discussion going with your customers? Are they agreeing that there's the need? Is it a difficult discussion? And actually, I want to ask, one moment, I want to ask our attendees, are you installing better quality audio in your meeting spaces? So just a quick yes, no, that'd be great. In the question box. We won't wait for you, but go ahead, Ashish.
So I may have a slightly controversial view on this topic, right? It's my opinion, with manufacturers like Televic or other Shure or many other manufacturers that lead in the audio space. At this point, audio is largely solved, meaning that if no matter what room you're walking into, whether it's a fully glass fish tank conference room or a high ceilings courtroom, there is technology available to achieve great audio in that space at this point. I would say 10 years ago, there would be, these kind of rooms that we walk into, the glass conference room or the high ceilings courtroom or the church space or whatever, and we would shy away from it. Like, hey, there's no way you could do a video conference in this space. Are you crazy? Right. And, but at this point, with AI-based DSP processing, beamforming microphones, a number of different technologies that have come out in the last few years, audio is largely solved. I think we're going to see a lot more innovation in the video space, in my opinion, in the cameras and how the tracking happens. But, as far as your question regarding desire from a customer standpoint, it just, the moment they walk into a bad audio room and they have a conference call in that room, they have the desire to get great audio in that space.
Mm-hmm. And our audience is kind of following up. Only one person said no, they're not installing better audio. And we do have one, and want to talk about this as well. It's not just audio, but cameras with methods to track the person speaking. So that's been very big in the last few years, and really developing even further. And making sure that those people are up on this display. And there's so much now. You've got to have displays that can show the whole room, bring a whole bunch of remote participants in. And Peter, you mentioned closed captioning, which is absolutely critical now. It's ADA compliance. You absolutely must have that. So the display has to be large and clear. Okay, Ashish, I want to ask you a little bit about the audio and camera tracking. What are some of the challenges that you're seeing, and how predominant is that now?
So I think the major challenge in my perspective with camera tracking and just like, or rather, I would go even higher level than that, like enhancing the video experience of a meeting, is the industry agreeing on what is a good experience, right? So there's a lot of manufacturers that are saying that, look, let's expose every single person that's in the room and give them equal screen real estate. Is that the best experience, or is it highlighting people who are speaking in the room? Is that the better experience, right? Obviously, you see those people who are speaking in a larger window, but then you're missing out on the other half of the story on how the gestures or other things that are happening in the room. So it's my opinion that in all the different innovations that are coming up, I think there's going to be somewhere in between, highlighting only the people who are speaking in the room versus people who are, the rest of the people that are in the room. How are you going to highlight those? How are you going to show who you're going to show, and how are you going to show them? Is the other part of the equation. Now, within, you can have really great cameras within the room and you could be broadcasting those, but we have no control on how the person on the far end is consuming that meeting. They may be on a mobile phone, they may be driving, they may be on a laptop or a multi-screen monitor. So also trying to making sure that the in-room technology is able to accommodate that variety of how people are consuming the meeting is another aspect. I think we're going to see a lot of innovations in the next year or two.
Interesting.
You know,
I'm going to
Cindy, I like to comment on a couple of things. Oh, go ahead, please.
Oh, sorry. I want to put, while we talk, I want to put up a poll question for our audience.
Oh, sure.
And I'm hoping everybody can see that. Anyway, so I'm going to leave that up for a couple minutes. Go ahead, Peter.
Yeah, no, I like to add on to what Ashish said. It's interesting that when we talk about full-blown technologies and complete solutions with, DSP and APIs and control systems and line array and everything, he's correct. We have a lot of technologies that can really ring a room. I think where we were coming at and see a huge change was maybe some applications that don't have the budget or certain things to be able to have a simple and effective way to get started to hear things and then grow and integrate from there. That's why an expansion with us with BIAMP and integrators and QSC and others around the world, you need to have that team approach to have scaled solutions, including video. That's a great point, Ashish, that we can get to Joe on the types of video. It's interesting that says if we can have a simple, good, better, best approach. We have products with built-in webcams, and then we work with APIs with integration and other manufacturers such as Ashish and Joe. And you go, no, use your cameras, zoom in here. You have to have the flexibility to work with everybody. And that's the last few years of the modern workplace. So we are thinking of it as from a cradle to the grave, from the smallest rural court or small city with very little budget or school boards, all the way up to the top corporations at JP Morgan, Manhattan, and everywhere in between. It's not one size fits all, but the premise of our discussion today is, get in the game. You're going to have better communication. And with AI coming, I say that because of the courts and voice print and different discussions that we've been thrown into because of that industry saying we need to isolate all the microphones for years in courts because we had to capture each, thing for transcription in the official record. But now with all the new tools coming, we don't need that separation. We just need better quality audio to make sure that AI program works correctly. That's just one dynamic.
So I'm going to show the poll results now and give you a second more for anybody who wants to enter. And I will show the poll results now. Okay, look at that.
Great.
Well, Joe, you'll be happy. Call all these people. Kidding.
Selling cameras. There you
go. But that's very interesting to see. You know what? I have to say, as a remote worker, I'm very dismayed that only 6% are going to outfit home office workers with high quality microphones and cameras. Come on, please. It's important. It's important for the overall experience, especially if you've got a program that's for remote. But anyway,
I think that may be telling that the home office setup is more about do it yourself, right? Like as a company, let's say if I buy 1,000 different webcams and whatever, and then give it to all my employees. Like, is the technology outfit that my IT managers picked going to fit in my remote office? Right, that's a question. Versus, is it better for? Or I think most home working people have outfitted that office themselves in terms of just going out to a retail outlet and acquiring whatever technology they need. And in some cases, it may just be a laptop, or in some cases, it may be more elaborate setup. Cindy, if you're doing regular webinars, you may have a more elaborate audio system versus somebody else who's not, right?
It's coming next week, actually.
Yeah. There you go.
So I want to talk about use cases, and we talked about the flexible space, because that's really important. A lot of the spaces have to convert to a lot of the footprint for some companies going down there. And if there's only people in the office 3 days a week, they're not going to waste that space. So it's going to be multi-use. So Joe, I see you shaking your head. So how do you outfit those spaces where technology is not going to go to waste? Is there? I know. Okay, so 5 years ago there was the huddle space, there was the small meeting space, and there was the large boardroom or conference room. That's not as much the norm now, from what I'm hearing.
Yeah, some of those spaces still do exist. Some of those places are very specific. However, to your point, really those spaces are more defined by how they're being used at that moment, more so than being defined as the space is being ideated and then created, right? So what is a huddle space? Well, a huddle space can be a huddle space for me and you today, but it can be a conference space when the next group of people come in after we leave. So as an end user, how do we create a space that allows us to do that? What we need to do as an end user is we need to understand that display, that audio system, the cameras, all of that needs to be as dynamic as possible. It needs to be able to support a huddle space right this moment, and then it needs to be able to support a conference space at the next moment. And then if we really want real bang for our buck, can that display then be used as a wayfinding display or as regular digital signage later? So when we look at planning our spaces, what types of displays give us more dynamism? For example, do we have displays that are working with, for example, a system on a chip that allow that display itself to be a centrally located computing processor that can handle whatever application that's needed, and then you're really optimizing your investment there. And then what capabilities, what compatibility does that display have with all of these different function use cases? And understanding, do I want a display that has its own use cases, or that it maximizes its own ability as a panel and as an operating system and a chip, and allowing software providers to be able to come in and then provide that solution? So really understanding that if you're using your display properly, it's going to be one of 100 things, and being able to plan that the display, the camera, the microphone, the speakers, to be able to really thrive in any environment that you throw its way. That's what today's workspace is. So
you said something really key that everybody's like, yeah, one of 100 things. And that's kind of, it brings me right into a topic that I've brought up a lot in these webinars, is the interoperability and partnerships. Infocom, the last 3 years, I don't think I've gone into, I couldn't even imagine going into booth 5 years ago and seeing really competitive products, logos in booths. And you do that, and you can see that now, and because products have to work together. So let's talk a little bit about partnerships and what that means for the end users and integrators. Peter, why don't you start off with that?
Sure. No, as a manufacturer, I think, it's we're one small piece of a total solution, and we rely on people like Ashish to, bring that total solution to the customer home in an integrated fashion. For us to make sure that not only is his design important, we need to understand, all right, what is he using as a DSP? What is he using as a control system? What is he using in display management and things? And with our part, and frankly, this was one of the things that Televic grew through the pandemic was we used to be a closed end, we do the UN type thing, and we're very good at it, but that was it. But designers had a problem saying, I can't control you, I can't route you. You're good for that one thing, and I'll use you when I need that, but I can't use you on everything else. So opening up the platforms to work together was the key change for Televic and many other manufacturers, frankly. And working with people like Biamp to be able to go, okay, now here's a program on Cornerstone that Ashish can just grab, put in, tweak, and he's done. And he's working within his design. So the manufacturers, such as ourselves, must work with everybody. In fact, like with Sony and others and APIs for camera control, we want to make sure that all cameras and everybody, to Ashish's design, says you put a Televic system in and you can use Joe's cameras. And it all works together, and there's no more of this. And that really, I think, evolved over the last 4 years in our space. Guys, what do you think?
Yeah, I'd really like to add on to what Peter's talking about, because this is so important to Sony's strategy moving forward. We see it across the board. Manufacturers really prioritizing what it is that makes their product shine. Really focusing on, from a professional display perspective, what makes that panel work? What makes that panel work for a very long time and makes that panel look good, and allows us to work as best as possible. From a Sony perspective, we understand the fact that we are a panel manufacturer. We make displays. And there are so many software providers that they focus specifically on their solution. We're going to get out of their way. We're going to let them provide the solution that works best for the end user. And from a software perspective, we are going to create an environment that allows those software partners to work and integrate with us as best as possible. And that's really as deep into the weeds as we would really like to get from the software perspective, and really allow the companies with the software expertise to provide that solution. And I think that provides, that hegemony provides the best experience for everyone, and that's what we're going to continue to do.
Yeah, Ashish, I know we've talked about this a lot in the past too, is, bringing manufacturers together and solutions together, and, services. Whether it's services from an integrator, or frankly, I know there's a lot of manufacturers that offer services as well. And that opens up a really big area as well. I mean, there's services, ongoing services, warranty. I mean, warranties, I've heard this from a few different manufacturers. The whole warranty thing has completely changed. So Ashish, I would like you to start off with that, talk about how those partnerships and alliances matter for you.
So yes, so warranties are certainly very important. Having the confidence that all of your products that you've installed are going to be functional and supported for a certain amount of time. The other thing in terms of services that's important and that we found success with is adoption services. Right? So we now, a majority of the employees in the offices are only coming in a couple days a week. And they're not necessarily coming in full time. We've just installed this fancy outfit of a combination of huddle rooms and conference rooms and new board rooms, and they're all now Teams enabled or Zoom enabled or whatever, right? How are you going to get your employees to actually utilize that technology and in a quick and reliable way, so that they can very quickly walk in at 1:58 into the conference room and start a 2 o'clock meeting, right? And with success. So in that, parking a technician on site for months on end in order to assist adoption, for that person to be on call and not a 4-hour response time, but more like a 4-minute response time, in order to get that person up and running, in order to make our technology the most successful, is something we've found a lot of success with a lot of clients.
Cindy, from a manufacturer point of view, to complement what Ashish just said, every manufacturer should, but expanding what we did was with on-site commissioning, SLAs, advanced replacement, extended warranties, hotline support. The end user of a product or a system must have the confidence in all the components, everything that was designed. And I know, obviously Sony is a company everybody knows. And as people learn about Televic and other manufacturers, it has to go all the way through the chain. We have to make sure that the end user is supported with all the extended warranties and the history, but also with people in Ashish's position of saying, his time is money. So if our engineering team pre and post project can support him, hopefully, integrator designers and consultants will go, all right, this works, and it's dual fold. So it's not just to our integrator supports as a manufacturer, but it is all the way through the end user, and ultimately it seems like that is commonplace or needed today to be competitive.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, we've known this for a long time, but the conferencing technologies are no longer optional, right? And they haven't been optional for the last 5 years, but most of your meetings, some of the key stakeholders and key decision makers are remote. So having a microphone not work, or having a camera that's offline or not syncing or whatever, that's just not acceptable anymore. And if you add up the hourly rate of all the people that are participating in that meeting, a 15-minute delay could be thousands of dollars, right?
Agreed.
Yeah, I think just to add to this, to what Ashish and Peter are talking about, is it's a really kind of an A to Z solution. And from the integrator's perspective, from Ashish's perspective, and then from the end user beyond that, they want to know that everything's going to work, but everything's going to play well together. And this really kind of goes back to the conversation of where we started, of partnerships, and having that endorsement that everything's going to play well together. And I endorse this software company, and the software company endorses the manufacturer. That's so critical, especially when we look at these large projects. There can't be any misses. So we've now moved into a more integrated workspace, more integrated than ever before, on many different levels. And I expect that we're going to continue to see more integration moving forward.
So one of the things you mentioned earlier, Joe, was SOC, and wanted to kind of bring up, as I always think that the AV over IP is a done deal, and it's not. For a lot of higher eds haven't gotten there yet, for various reasons. A lot of institutions and companies have not gotten there yet. But you mentioned SOC, and I think over these past few years, with the ability, I think everybody saw the ability to troubleshoot remote, and commission remotely, and deploy remotely. So, talk a little bit about that. I mean, how critical is all of the products to really be part of an ecosystem that can be remotely managed and monitored and serviced?
This is a great topic where we could do a whole panel just by itself, just on this one topic.
I have done them.
But so we have, there's limitations based on infrastructure on why we might not move over to AV over IP, from a standpoint of, if we look at, and we see this really kind of more on large corporation, higher ed, as well as stadiums, where the infrastructure is already in place. The infrastructure costs millions of dollars to put in place. So we're not going to, we're going to kind of fall a little bit into the sunk cost fallacy and just kind of stick with an older technology, the RF technology, which has its limitations, especially when we talk about these environments that are really kind of borderless. They can be used and viewed remotely, and they can be troubleshooted remotely. This digital ecosystem that now is really kind of evident in the workplace is considerably more capable, and it really limits costs, especially when we think about what can we do remotely in order to troubleshoot these things. To your point, a system on a chip, this is going to give us capabilities that are found really inside the displays themselves. It's going to essentially decrease the cost of really having a standalone device. But it's going to work inside that ecosystem, and having AI that's going to allow the system on a chip to work in whatever environment that it has, and use the different software and other hardware capabilities seamlessly is very critical as we move more into this type of digital ecosystem.
Cindy, from our side, having IT be a big part of our world, who's running the project and things, products being run on standard Cat 5 plus and being able to say video and audio. I think we've bridged the gap of, we need to provide a solid solution that's secure and still give you the capabilities to come in and out of our system, like 6 high-def video feeds on one shielded Cat 5 to multiple devices, but also in and out to whatever an integrator like Ashish is going to design and say, I need to go in and out. And endpoints coming, meaning, we're kind of paralleling, where is everybody now? We need solutions completed now. We have those, but also very similar to what we did with audio and DSP modes and giving all that capability to our integrator partners and designers. The same is coming with video, meaning we need to be able to play our role as the hardware in the room, but also give the expertise to those that Joe mentioned earlier, to the other components and partners, and make sure it's easy for an integrator designer. So it's kind of a three-legged table. You got to do all three.
Ashish, how about most of your clients? Have they completed a migration, or are interested in it, or how's that going?
I think the whole managed platform equation, right? Like, so having one platform for IT that can kind of manage all the different disparate AV equipment that's out there is probably an equation that still needs some solving. I think from my perspective, I've seen a lot of different manufacturers like Televic, Sony, Panasonic. A lot of these, they come to us and say, "Hey, we have this amazing management platform. You can see our system from anywhere, reboot it from anywhere." But then that's one of 200 or 300 different manufacturers that will be put into a building, right? From an AV perspective. So whether it's from an AV perspective or from an IT perspective, having all of these different products report to a singular system, and also to drive insights from that. Hey, this particular error is happening. What does that actually mean? Is that, a great example I had seen at one point was, a power strip manufacturer telling me that, hey, if you're seeing a power draw spike from a display's power strip, that means that display is about to fail, right? Now, to be able to recognize that using AI or some kind of decision making, and kind of showing up on site at 8 a.m. saying, hey, your display is about to fail, and let me service it before it does. That's something, I think that there's still more to go in before we achieve that world. But I think there's a lot of innovation happening in order to get there.
So you've all mentioned AI several times. Let's just dive right in. Where does, and AI has been used for many years. I think it just hasn't become a buzzword. It is a big buzzword now. But how do you see AI in the modern workplace? In whether it's your products, what you do, Ashish. Ashish, actually, I know this is a big topic for you, so I'm going to start off with you. AI.
Yep. I mean, I think it's different functions, right? So if you're talking about audio, then there's AI built into a lot of DSP blocks. I'm sure Televic is looking at that. There's a lot of DSP manufacturers that have AI-based audio processing that clean up the audio a lot. One example would be on Microsoft Teams. You can now enable voice isolation, so it only hears my voice. Even if there's a dog barking in the background, or if there is somebody else speaking in the background, if my Teams call is not going to send anything other than my voice only. Right, so that's an AI processing block. Another side AI is being used is listening to the meeting and kind of making transcribing the meeting, as well as making tasks. Hey, Cindy, you promised Ashish you were going to send him an email about X, Y, and Z, right? Like, so having that show up in your inbox as a task because you verbally said that you were going to do that in a meeting, right? So that's another area where AI is going to be used. And, I think AI is going to proliferate in every area of business, in wherever some kind of a decision making is required, where there's more data than a human brain can handle, AI is going to show up.
Thankfully, because there's already more data than my human brain can handle. I know, Peter and Joe, you've mentioned AI as well. If you want to touch on that.
Yeah, I think for us it's simple because we have a lot of partners that have services and they rely on us for audio to capture into their AI expansion. So the big ones were from the court, as I mentioned before, saying we need to identify, who's speaking. So if there's a room, and it doesn't have to be just courts, it could be anything. You want to be able to take that for different reasons. And then now with the expansion of the translation into remote interpretation, there's been so much requests around the country in different markets about needing interpretation more so than ever. It's interesting to see all the evolution down that road. As far as a manufacturer is concerned, obviously taking advantage of AI and bettering our tools and support and diagnostics and I keep going back to the partnerships. It is so important that whatever is coming on the market with AI, we all have to pay attention, a few years ago to make sure that we're going to be relevant. And I think that if a company understands the bigger picture in what they do and beyond, it comes down to the partners, it comes down to the applications, and then hopefully we can come up with solutions that matter.
Yep, absolutely.
Cindy, you were mentioning that AI has been around for a while and we didn't know it. From a display perspective, AI really kind of cut its teeth, if you will, when it came to upscaling. And we still see that today, of course, where every new TV and display is capable of upscaling basic 1080p up to 4K, and then of course 8K. And it's kind of interesting because when you look at the different evolutions of what made a new generation of a display or a TV. You could always look and say, okay, it's going to be more resolution, more resolution, more resolution. I think we're kind of getting now to a point where, from an infrastructure perspective, more resolution really doesn't make a lot of sense. Unless you're eating dinner off the screen, you're not close enough to really need any more resolution anyway. So what is the next evolution from a display perspective? And I had a conversation just about this just yesterday with a colleague, and it's going to be AI. We look at what in the corporate space is changing, and beyond the fact that we're getting more and more work than any generation before us, we also have the technology and we have the automation to allow us to more efficiently work And all of these technologies that we've been talking about here in this panel are the expectations is that they're going to automate the workspace. They're going to make the worker more efficient and hopefully look better to their bosses. And this is what we need. So when we talk about, Peter was talking about partnerships and things like that. How does AI understand its relationship with the partner's solutions, and how does it integrate its capability and optimize and maximize those capabilities and that handshake with those partners? That's really going to be done with AI. We have to have that work because the environment is just so dynamic that we can't code for every specific interaction, and we need AI in order to do that.
Interesting. And I think it's 2 years ago, we were like, AI was a huge buzz, and actually even last year. And I think we're just kind of calming down a little bit. It's like, okay, it's there, it's evolving. And I think, Joe, to your point is we can't code for everything. I'm definitely looking forward to my AI assistant appearing like, hello, I'm waiting. And my digital twin is what I need.
Yeah, there you go.
So you know what, we've got a few minutes left, and based on our discussion and the modern workplace, I'd like to ask each of you if there's a couple of takeaways for our audience on planning the modern workplace going into 2025. What would that be? And Ashish, we can hear you.
Yep. Are you there? Yep. As far as planning the workplace, I think purpose-built spaces and understanding what function certain employees are playing is really important. So, as an example, if some of your employees are all day on CAD, having those certain workstations be set up for that would be important. Versus if all of your, a certain percentage of your employees are, I'm hearing some disturbances. I think it's from Peter's end. Having certain employees that are set up for different functions. And the other thing that we've realized, at least at our office, is that there's not a single employee that's doing the same thing all day long, right? So there's a certain employee, most employees are, they may be spending a part of their day in email, part of their day in AutoCAD, and part of their day meeting with different people. And all of those require different kinds of spaces, especially when they're in the office. So in order to having your office be flexible enough so that that employee feels comfortable to move around and doesn't have to park at the same space all day long, all week long, and be able to perform those different functions, I think is important.
Yep, absolutely. Peter, can you hear us now?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Can you hear me okay? I had to switch microphones.
Yes, I can. Actually, so I'm going to go to Joe next on what would you like to impart about the modern workplace?
I'd like to add on to what Ashish was talking about. I thoroughly agree. Plan your space with flexibility in mind. Know going into it that what you plan today won't necessarily be what it is tomorrow. Everything was so solidified and so easy pre-pandemic, and then now we're to Peter's point, we're on a pendulum now, and now we're swinging the opposite way, and now we have this new definition of what the workplace looks like, and it's all remote, of course, right? And now we're swinging back towards a level of semblance of really kind of the water and the oil kind of separating. We don't really know what it's going to be. And the only way that you can plan in an undefined space is to plan your products, plan your software that give you the most freedom, the most flexibility in those workspaces. Ultimately, if you plan on being too solidified, too vertical in how you're using your infrastructure, it's going to cost you considerably more than if you just paid for product that will allow you to work in whatever environment it turns out to be.
So can I interject here? Because I think, so you say we don't know. So we do know it's going to be change. So the constant is change, right?
Right.
And, so that's what we plan for, is change. And I think the technology today, with especially with AI and the cloud, I get updates on my computer way too often. So, and they just they just happen. And fortunately, I'm on a Mac. So fortunately, everything works. And I think that's going to be the same with the workplace. There's going to be something new so often. With all the new technologies that you guys are developing, and that's kind of exciting.
Cindy, I think to close on our side, there, in a simple way, the flexibility in the workplace, a lot has happened in the U.S. that is now exploring new solutions, meaning like flex spaces. If you have a divided room in a school, a corporation, a city, or a hospitality environment, we're seeing the use of our types of technologies being used more in the United States than ever before because of the coordination with our partners. And when I say it's new, it's new because people maybe haven't seen it. And I mean end users. If you can have a system where you can roll in and have basically audio in 15 people here, 100 people here, 30 in here, and roll them in, and you have audio and video flexibly, that is new to America, meaning the US from a category point of view. And I say it's new because ultimately it's been a locked-in solution. Now, that being said, it's just like anything else that the other two had mentioned. You have to plan around all the other technology. But I would say the thing that you want to do is look at things a second time and see what's new, the way things are coming, because there's a lot of new things and new discussions we're having on a daily basis about our entire conversation today. But don't think that every technology is baked. Things keep changing, evolving, and it's exciting to see.
Absolutely. So I want to sneak in one last question here that came from our audience, and you can decide who takes it. For developer experience advocates, are any of the core needs and wants for an optimal modern workplace with DevX in mind different? Who wants to take that on?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the question.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
can you repeat it?
Yes, for developer experience advocates, are any of the core needs and wants for an optimal modern workplace different, with DevX in mind?
I don't know
So
how to
I'm
answer that
guessing
one.
they're talking
She's trying to
about. I'm guessing they're talking about computer developers, right? So I think even when you think about an individual, in terms of programming or software developers, job function, what are they doing throughout the day? If they were just sitting in front of a monitor and just coding Python all day long, then they might as well be at home and get that done much quicker. But throughout their day, they're probably collaborating with colleagues. They're having whiteboarding sessions. They're having stand-ups, agile meetings, etc. So setting up your workspace in order to support those different activities is, I think, important, rather than kind of thinking about only their core function, which is striking their fingers on a keyboard. I think their actual job function is a lot more than that.
Great. I'm going to wrap it at that and thank Sony and Televic for sponsoring. Otherwise, this would not happen. Thank you very much. And Joe, Peter, and Ashish, thank you so much. It's been a great conversation. And drum roll, please. The winner of our $250 Amazon gift card is Lee Weedby from Virginia. Our team will reach out to you. Now, I want to thank all of you for joining us today. Thank you for the great questions. Let's keep the conversation going. Have a great rest of your day.